On a clear day, how it will astound you that the glow of your feelings outshines every star. You feel part of every mountain, sea, and shore. You can hear from far and near a world you've never heard before. And on a clear day, on that clear day, you can see forever and more. And so when I looked at these lyrics again, because I'm a person who hears music first. I could listen to a tune for years and years on end and not really know what it's about because I hear the music. I hear the vocals as music, as an instrument, and the lyrics kind of, fall to the background. But when I looked at these lyrics, I thought, wow, they're so new thought, which is so amazing. And because we're talking about perspective this month, I really appreciated the perspective that this song was offering of how when we look around and we really, really notice all of the amazingness that is around us, that really it's not something that we're separate from, it's something that we are. And so this is something that we get to decide, do we want to look at like a mountain and go, wow, that mountain is so cool, Mother Nature is like so awesome at creating things? Or do we want to accept that that same energy that is that mountain, that same energy that is every single twinkling star in the sky, that energy is who and what I am. That creativity that is always unfolding and expressing and unfurling into a greater, newer, different, more expansive, amazing expression of what it is, that's who and what I am. Just like all of that incredible stuff that is available in nature. And so that's what this song made me think of when I was looking at the lyrics. And so perspective. Peter had mentioned it before, that it is a point of view. It's also a particular attitude toward or a way of regarding something. And it can be something that we're looking at, or it can be something that we are receiving, a yes and situation. And so the thing that we talk about a lot in New Thought, aside from there only being one thing going on and that everyone and everything is that, is the personal responsibility aspect, which is how much of that allness of being, how much of that infinite potentiality, how much of that infinite, eternal, boundless, limitless, overflowing, ever-flowing love, creativity, beauty, harmony, all of that amazing stuff, all of those incredible attributes, how much of that do we actually want to express? How much of that do we actually want to experience? Because ultimately, it's up to us. There's no one outside of us. There's nothing outside of us. No power, no entity, no person sitting on a cloud, pulling any puppet strings, telling us do this, do that. We're the ones who decide. And we decide by how we use our mind. We decide by how we open our hearts. We decide by intentionally, purposely, consciously choosing what it is that we want to experience in life. And if we're choosing intentionally and purposefully and consciously, and we're still not experiencing the kind of life that we want to experience, then we need to really think about, well, hold on a second. Let's get behind those thoughts that I'm having and get to the beliefs. And are there beliefs that are in play in that subjective or subconscious mind of mine that are conflicting with the conscious thoughts that I'm having? These incredible ideas, these dreams, these passions, these desires that I have. Is there something that is getting in the way in the subjective mind of me realizing those dreams, desires, and passions? Because if there is, I'm not going to experience these things. But I can use my conscious mind to go and shift my attention, and by shifting my attention, I shift my perspective, and by shifting my perspective, I experience life anew. So even if the same thing is happening, having the same conversation with someone, the same stuff is going on, if I choose to shift my perspective, I can have an entirely different experience. In every single moment, we are an opportunity to do that. Every moment. That's how powerful we are. So, as some of you know, Glenn and I just returned back from a trip to Toronto. And even though this is when we would be normally back at Elevate, it's been 2 weeks because there was an Elevate with Creativity last week, because we haven't been here for the 2 Sundays in between, it feels like we've been gone forever. And so coming back today, it was like, whoa, it kind of feels like it's good, but I feel kind of slightly still sort of discombobulated, and like I'm decompressing and getting back onto West Coast time and West Coast energy. Because even though we lived in Toronto for over 30 years of our lives, mostly together, but some of it apart when we were younger, even though there was so much of it that was familiar and even kind of felt good when I first landed, and the first time that I was driving on the Queensway or the Garden, I was like, oh yeah, this is great, It wore off very quickly. Yeah. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to be here anymore. It's only been 8 years, and there was never an idea of, oh, maybe I'll move back to Toronto. Maybe we'll move back to Toronto. Our daughter Milana did. She had 1 foot left in Toronto the whole time that we were here, and she's loving it over there. Like, living up her life. Great. But for me, it was really interesting to have this experience of, that's the city that I lived in for most of my life. That is where most of our community is, most of our friends. We still have family left there. And it still felt like this doesn't work anymore. This doesn't fit anymore. And it got to the point where it just felt so uncomfortable. And it was really, really uncomfortable for me because I thought, wait a minute, this is just a city. This is just an experience. But I feel like I'm getting sucked into the drama and the heat and the smog and the, oh my God, the driving for 3 hours in one direction and, bright, vent. And I'm like, what is happening here? Like, I've been here for like 10 minutes and already I feel myself getting totally sucked into the collective consciousness about how horrible Toronto is. And for someone who is a minister, who stands at the front of the room, inspiring people and reminding people that we are love, that we are infinite energy and creativity and potentiality, to keep having that experience was not very pleasant. So we loved watching Milana graduate. We loved seeing our friends. It was so awesome spending time with my mom together. But there were things that happened that really just got in the way, or I allowed them to get in the way of me really having a good, relaxing time, a vacation per se. Because I will say there was no vacation, it was work being there. But one of the things that happened was the Airbnb that we stayed at, which was a lovely place. And, we walked in, it's like, yeah, this is as advertised. The second day, ants showed up. There was an infestation of these tiny, minuscule, almost invisible ants. Like, I've never seen such tiny ants. And so Glenn was the first one to see them on account. He kind of did this, and there's all these ants crawling around, and then there's a little bunch here and a little bunch there. And he's like, oh, okay, well, this is what's happening. Let's just clean it up and everything. Let the owner of the house know, and they can take care of it. And so that's what happened for a couple of days. But these ants, it was like, I'd open another cupboard, and oh, look, there's more. I'm like, okay, well, let's take everything out of there and clean it up and whatever. And, the ant traps are coming. Okay, and then cleaning it up. And then, oh, look, there's more. And it was just like everywhere I opened the door, there were more ants coming. And it wasn't a ton. And we couldn't tell where they were coming from. And so I was okay with it for about 3 days. And then I hit a wall. And it was like a switch went off, and I'm like, okay, this sucks. I can't believe that we paid all this money for this kind of place, and blah, 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 and whatever. There's this with the ants, there's this, because there were other things that went on too. But the ants, it was like, where are they coming from, and why are they here? And I got so focused on the ants that I completely sort of forgot that, you know what, there's so many other ways of looking at this. The ants probably got disturbed, and I did say this, the ants probably got disturbed by something, and so they're just going around looking for food, right? We're cleaning everything up, there's nothing for them to eat, so they're probably just gonna leave. And as we kept cleaning, there were fewer and fewer and fewer of them, but they would still show up, and because we couldn't tell where they were coming from, we didn't know sort of how to get to the root of the problem. So this was one thing that I just got so sucked into, and I couldn't believe it. And I just thought in the back of my mind, there's a lesson here, there's a story here. I don't know what it is right now, and I kind of don't want to know. I just want the ants away because I want to be able to make food on the counter. Well, anyway, eventually the ants did go away, and everything was fine. And then there's all the other stuff that we ended up dealing with. But when I got home here, I just thought, why did I get so sucked into this whole ant situation? It's not like I caused the ants to be there, but I was definitely equal to the situation which, the ants presented themselves in. And so why was I so bothered by it? Why was I so discombobulated? Why couldn't I just accept that, it's just happening, it's temporary, this too shall pass, or it came to pass, and that's that. Why couldn't I David Hawkins my way out of it by just letting go, I don't have the answer right now. But the example that I'm giving you is that no matter how hard we try, no matter how focused we can be sometimes, all the spiritual tools that we have in our tool belt, sometimes life happens and in such a way that we find ourselves spiraling into some sort of, not quite an abyss, but into a place, into a mindset that we don't enjoy, that we don't appreciate, that we're aware of, that we're not enjoying and appreciating, and we know better. But you know what? The David Hawkins thing here is to let go of the resistance, to let go of I should know better, to just let go and just allow for whatever it is to happen and just appreciate that it's only temporary, because everything is temporary. And so the perspective here is, what do I want to focus on? Because whatever I focus on, I'm going to expand it with the use of my mind and with the attention I'm paying to it. So in The Science of Mind by Ernest Holmes, he writes, the whole purpose of the science of mind is to reconcile the apparent separation of the spiritual world, which must be perfect, with the material world, which appears imperfect. Man's experience is the logical outcome of his inner vision. His horizon is limited to the confines of his own consciousness. Wherever this consciousness lacks a true perspective, its outward expression will lack proper harmony. So going back to what Stephanie offered, going back to what Peter offered, we can focus on whatever is going on around us. But we also need to remember that it's important to focus on what's going on within us. Because whatever it is that we are entertaining, that we are focusing on, that we are buying with the attention that we're paying on the inside, that's what's manifesting on the outside. And so if we don't like what's going on, if we're having a challenging experience, then it's not the experience that is the issue, it's whatever is going on inside us that is now being demonstrated so that we can actually, instead of, like I was, oh my God, the ants, go, okay, hold on. What in me requires attention that is showing up like these little ants that are just crawling around on the counter? What is it that I could do? What is it that I could attend to by turning within instead of focusing the ants, the ants, the ants? And this is something that we can get caught up in so easily every single day. An argument with a child, with a spouse, with a coworker, someone cuts us off in traffic, we have to wait on the phone for 45 minutes. Anything that is unpleasant, anything that can trigger us, that can get us all riled up or whatever, it's not the thing. It's the way we feel about the thing. It's what we're thinking about the thing. And so if we want to have a different experience, it's not the thing that we got to focus on, it's ourselves. So I was in conversation with someone yesterday, a new prayer partner of mine that I'm very excited about. And she actually was talking about, we were talking about her parents and spending time with her parents as they're aging. And she actually offered a really interesting perspective. And she was saying how her parents only sort of come to visit once a year to where she is. And because they are around 80, she's realizing that really she only has X number of visits left. So she wants to make the best of them. And so it wasn't sort of, I have all the time in the world, or, next year, maybe it'll be better. It's like, no, I only have maybe 15 more visits with my parents because they're at that age now. So I want to make sure that every single visit I am present, I am with them, that we are spending every single moment as if it is the last. Not because they may go and die tomorrow, but because every single moment is so precious, and every single now moment is the only moment of true creativity. Right here, right now. There's no future, there's no past. Right here. This is where we get to make our choices. This is where we get to decide, how are we viewing the world? What is our point of view? What is our perspective? I was looking up on a website, I just happened upon it, called The Socratic Method by someone, and there was a blog post on there by someone named Virgil. And in there, Virgil writes, "Too much focus solely on the self may disconnect us from the richness of the external world, while excessive reliance on external validation can hinder our personal growth and self-awareness. As such, it becomes crucial to strike a harmonious balance between introspection and engagement with the world around us." So not exactly what Stephanie was saying or Peter was saying, but this is something that is really important because it's all about harmony and balance and being aware that our lives, our life experience, our choices are yes and situations. So we're not either focusing on the external or on the internal. We need to be aware of both. And it's in that awareness, in that fine balance, that ebb and flow, that push and pull, that we become more and more aware of that incredible, amazing awesomeness that we truly are and how we can live within the seeming confines of our life, of our limited timelines, from 0 to death, whatever that might be. Instead of living, within those confines as limited, living within those confines as that incredible, amazing, dynamic, energetic flow that is always in play. And when we focus on that, then stuff like ants, stuff like getting cut off in traffic, stuff like arguments with our kids, with our spouses, not getting our way, becomes less important because it's temporary. And it's such a small blip compared to that infinite nature of our being. So back to the song lyrics again, On a Clear Day. On a clear day, rise and look around you and you'll see who you are. So this isn't so much about this picture. I love this picture. It isn't so much about the day needing to be clear as it is about you being clear with who you are. Because the day could be stormy and cloudy. It could be miserable. But if you are crystal clear in knowing that I am the infinite expansive universe in action, I am God manifesting, I am infinite potentiality of the quantum field expressing, if you are clear on that, everything else then falls into place because you're showing up as that rather than showing up by reacting to whatever it is that is going on. On a clear day, how it will astound you that the glow of your feelings outshines every star. No matter what is going on, no matter what you experience, no matter what is happening in life, there is that in you that is infinitely more powerful, creative, and resilient than any of it. And that's who you truly are. You feel part of every mountain, sea, and shore. You can hear from far and near a world you've never heard before. And on a clear day, on that clear day, you can see forever and more. The more time we spend, the more attention we pay to who we truly are, our true nature, our true essence, the infinite potentiality of our being, the more our life experience will reflect that. If we continue to focus on the conventional, the relative, the minutiae, life on the outside, so to speak, then we're only going to get so far, and frustration will probably come into play again and again and again. But if we remember that we are that infinite, expansive universe, if we remember that we are all powerful beings, that we are spirit, that we are universal breath, breathing itself in, through, and as us, then we can remember and we can really anchor ourselves in the knowing that we can be and do anything that we want. And that's not to say that, there are things like maybe we could fly or whatever. It's within the realm of possibility. But if you're clear on the potentiality that is within you, if you're clear on the capacity and capability that is always available in you, then all of the other stuff really does fall into perspective. So, back to the Carl Jung quote, your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. And that's what we want to do. We want to awaken to our true nature. We want to remember who we are. We want to show up as that incredible, amazing awesomeness that is the very nature, that is the beingness, that is the very truth of our soul. So again, the clarity isn't about the day itself, but how we perceive it and what our point of view about it is. And that clarity can only come from God. So back to our affirmation for the month. As I remember the infinite nature of my being, the seeming limitations of life come into perspective. Thank you, and so